3 days, 257 picks, 805,000 fans packed into the streets of Pittsburgh. And somewhere in all of that noise, all of that drama, all of those dreams becoming reality, a handful of franchises walked away looking like absolute geniuses, and a handful of others left questions on the table that are going to haunt them for years. This is the 2026 NFL Draft Breakdown, and we are not holding anything back. Let's start where every draft starts, with the number 1 overall pick. The Las Vegas Raiders selected Fernando Mendoza, quarterback out of Indiana, with the first pick in the draft. And look, nobody is going to tell you this was a surprise. This was the most predictable number 1 pick in years. But predictable does not mean unimportant. In fact, this pick might end up being one of the most consequential moments in the history of that franchise. Here is why. Fernando Mendoza is not just a quarterback. He is a story. This kid was a 2-star recruit out of Christopher Columbus High School in Miami. A 2-star recruit. Cal Berkeley was literally the only Power 5 program that offered him a scholarship. One school. And he took it, played 2 seasons, then transferred to Indiana, and what happened next, nobody saw coming. He led the Hoosiers to a perfect 16-0 season, their first national championship in program history, won the Heisman Trophy, the Walter Camp Award, the Maxwell Award, the Davey O'Brien Award, and was named AP College Football Player of the Year. He completed 72% of his passes for 3,535 yards, threw 41 touchdowns against just 6 interceptions, and in the college football playoff alone posted an 8-0 touchdown to interception ratio. 8 touchdowns, 0 picks, on the biggest stages of college football. And yet somehow, on draft night, he did not even go to Pittsburgh. He stayed home in Miami with his family, watched the pick come in, smiled, put on the Raiders cap, and saved the longest hug for his mother. When she said, "I'm so proud of you," that is what broke him. That is the guy Las Vegas just made the face of their franchise. Raiders GM John Spytek said it, Thursday night, great person, raised the right way. It's about his team, it's about winning. And honestly, you cannot say anything different after watching this kid's journey. Now let's be real about the situation he is walking into, because that matters too. The Raiders have not won a playoff game in 24 years. They have had 15 different head coaches since the year 2000. They cycled through 7 different starting quarterbacks in the past 3 seasons alone and went 15-36 in that stretch. New head coach Clint Kubiak has already said he does not necessarily want Mendoza starting week 1. Kirk Cousins is in the building and will likely open the season as QB1. The idea is that Mendoza sits, learns, grows, develops behind one of the smartest and most professional quarterbacks the NFL has seen in the past decade. Cousins is not just a good quarterback. He is exactly the kind of mentor a young signal caller needs. The comparison being thrown around by analysts right now is Mendoza learning the way Tom Brady did behind Drew Bledsoe in New England. Except here the rookie already has a Heisman and a national title on his resume before he throws a single NFL pass. The kid grew up idolizing Brady. He talks about preparation and film study the way Brady talks about preparation and film study. He has Cousins' competitive fire and team-first mentality and Brady's obsessive work ethic. If that combination translates, and if Clint Kubiak gives him the time and the support system to develop properly, the AFC West is going to have a very serious new problem on its hands within 2 or 3 years. Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Bo Nix, and now Fernando Mendoza. That division is going to be appointment television for the next decade. But let us move on to what this draft will actually be remembered for by analysts and historians in 10 years, and that is the Cleveland Browns. No, really. Stop laughing. Stop it. Because if these picks hit, and right now the early grades suggest they very well might, the Cleveland Browns may have just had the best draft of any team in football this year. PFF gave them an A+, CBS Sports had them near the top of every list. Fox Sports used the phrase one of their better collections of talent in my 26 years of professionally evaluating the NFL draft. The same Cleveland Browns, who have been the punchline of the league for the better part of 3 decades, just walked out of Pittsburgh looking like one of the smartest front offices in the building. And here is specifically how they did it. With the 9th overall pick, Cleveland selected Spencer Fano, offensive tackle out of Utah. Now, here's the thing about Fano that made this selection so satisfying. The Browns had traded back with Kansas City earlier in the draft process, traded back, not up, and still came away with a player PFF called the cleanest offensive line prospect in the entire draft. Fano earned PFF grades above 80 in each of his last 2 seasons at Utah, played both left and right tackle, and brings the kind of versatility that lets Cleveland's front office field their absolute best 5 along the offensive line in whatever combination makes the most sense. In a league where protecting your quarterback is the single most important thing you can build around, getting the cleanest offensive tackle in the draft after trading back is the kind of move that separates good front offices from great ones. Then, at pick 24, the Browns came back and took KC Conception, wide receiver out of Texas A&M, a guy who brings after-the-catch ability, slot and perimeter flexibility, and genuine big play potential to a receiving core that desperately needed a spark. Then, on day 2, they grabbed Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, a rangy free safety whose draft day slide ended exactly where it should have in Cleveland, where the Browns' already loaded pass rush will help him be everything analysts know he can be. Then Denzel Boston. Then Austin Barber in the 4th round to continue reinforcing the offensive line. Then Parker Brailsford. Then a 6th round flyer on Arkansas quarterback Talon Green, which, yes, raises the obvious question of why you need 4 quarterbacks on your roster. But GM Andrew Berry quickly shut down the notion of converting him to receiver, and the upside play at that point in the draft is fully defensible. Pick after pick after pick, Cleveland went out and checked the 2 most critical boxes any rebuilding team needs to check, build the trenches, and surround your quarterback with weapons. They did both, methodically, patiently, without panicking, without reaching, without chasing the room. Long-suffering Browns fans have been waiting for a reason to believe for a very long time. This draft weekend gave them one. Now, Howie Roseman, we have to talk about Howie Roseman, because at what point does the rest of the NFL just accept that this man is operating on a completely different level? The Philadelphia Eagles traded up in the 1st round, engineered the trade with the Dallas Cowboys, of all teams, to move 3 spots and land Makai Lemon, wide receiver out of USC, and the reigning Biletnikoff Award winner as the best receiver in college football. And look, that trade is already one of the great storylines of this draft weekend because of how it went down. The Steelers were on the phone with Makai Lemon while the Eagles were completing the trade to take him. Pittsburgh thought they had their guy. Then pick 20 came up, and Roger Goodell said, Philadelphia Eagles. The Steelers' draft board just got flipped upside down at their own home stadium in front of their own fans. You genuinely cannot write that script. And Roseman did it because he knew exactly what he was doing. The Eagles are reportedly moving A.J. Brown, likely to the Patriots, after June 1st. And Lemon paired with Devonta Smith gives Jalen Hurts an explosive, versatile receiving duo that can operate anywhere on the field. Then Roseman turned around on day 2 and grabbed tight end Eli Stowers, who scouts described less as a traditional tight end and more as an oversized slot receiver, another weapon layered into an already dangerous offense. Then came Markel Bell in the 3rd round, an offensive tackle standing 6 feet 9 inches tall, who may have been the single best value pick of the entire draft at his position, relative to where analysts had him graded. Bell is raw. He has 5 years of football experience total, but landing him in Philadelphia, where the Eagles have made a habit of developing offensive linemen better than anyone else in the league, is an absolute dream scenario for his development. Then a 5th-round quarterback in Cole Payton, who plays a similar style to Jalen Hurts. Then a safety. Then a cornerback. 7 picks in, and Roseman had addressed nearly every need on the roster, added upside at multiple positions, and somehow managed to make Cowboys fans angrier on draft weekend than they already were, which is genuinely an achievement. The Eagles entered this draft already as one of the best rosters in the NFC. They leave it deeper, younger, and with more weapons than when they walked in. That is just what Howie Roseman does, every single year. Let's talk about the pick that genuinely sent shockwaves through the 1st round, in a way nobody saw coming, the Los Angeles Rams taking quarterback Ty Simpson at number 13 overall. 13. With Matthew Stafford still under contract, still the reigning NFL MVP, still absolutely capable of winning a Super Bowl right now. Les Snead looked at his draft board with the 13th pick in the 1st round of the NFL draft and decided to take a backup quarterback who had started just 15 games in college. Analysts immediately lost their minds. CBS Sports called it arguably the worst use of draft capital a contender has ever demonstrated on draft day. The argument being made in the Rams building is that Simpson is the future after Stafford, that you take the quarterback when he is there, that you do not wait and find yourself without an answer at the position the way so many teams do. And there is a philosophical argument to be made for that thinking. But spending a top 15 pick on a player who will not help your Super Bowl window in 2026 when you are a legitimate contender with Stafford, Pukanakwa, and a defense that can win games is the kind of move that general managers either look like geniuses or complete disasters for in 3 years. There is no middle ground here. Either Ty Simpson becomes a franchise quarterback, and people say Les Snead saw something nobody else saw, or this pick becomes one of those draft night decisions that gets brought up every single offseason for the next decade. Now let's get to one of the most purely satisfying moments of the entire draft weekend, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers landing Reuben Bain Jr. with the 15th overall pick. Reuben Bain Jr., an edge rusher out of Miami. This is a player that many analysts had graded as a top 10 talent. Explosive off the line, powerful, disruptive, capable of wrecking an offensive game plan just by being on the field. Players like this are supposed to be gone by pick 10 or 11 in a normal draft. But in a first round, where offensive linemen dominated the board, 9 offensive linemen went in round 1. Tying a recent record and where teams were chasing trench protection over pass rush, Bain slid, and Tampa did not blink. They took the best player available at a premium position and got him at a 15-spot discount. That is how franchises build championship-level defenses. You do not reach for need. You take the best player on the board when he falls into your lap, and you do not apologize for it. Analysts have already been calling this one of the steals of the first round. 3 years from now, when Bain is lining up opposite some offensive tackle on 3rd and long and making quarterbacks miserable, Buccaneers fans will be very glad Todd Bowles in the front office stayed calm and let the board come to them. Let's spend a moment on some of the stories underneath the top of the first round that deserve more attention than they are getting. The New York Jets took David Bailey, edge rusher out of Texas Tech, at number 2 overall. Bailey had 14, 5 sacks and 23 tackles for loss in his final college season. He is a ready now, day one impact pass rusher who gives Aaron Glenn exactly what he needs on the defensive front. The Jets also came back in the first round to take tight end Kenyon Sadek from Oregon at 16, and then added wide receiver Omar Cooper Jr. from Indiana in the first round as well. 3 first-round picks for New York, and every one of them addresses a real need with real talent. The Jets have been in a playoff drought that has become genuinely painful for their fan base. This draft class will not fix everything overnight, but it is the kind of draft that starts to make a rebuilding team look competitive again. The Washington Commanders got linebacker Sonny Styles from Ohio State at 7, a sideline-to-sideline athlete who fits Dan Quinn's defense perfectly, and somehow got him without having to trade up. The Chicago Bears stole safety Dylan Thieneman from Oregon at 25, a player multiple analysts described as a potential Pro Bowl caliber talent who fell further than anyone expected. The Carolina Panthers grabbed Monroe Freeling, offensive tackle out of Georgia, in the first round, and PFF put them in the A-plus tier alongside the Browns for the totality of their class. Ohio State deserves a specific mention because what happened to the Buckeyes on Thursday night was genuinely historic. 4 Ohio State players went in the top 11 picks. 4. Wide receiver Carnell Tate went to the Titans at 4. Edge rusher Arvil Reese went to the Giants at 5. Linebacker Sonny Styles went to the Commanders at 7. Safety Caleb Downs went to the Cowboys at 11. The last time 2 running backs from the same school went in the first round was 2008, when Arkansas had Darren McFadden and Felix Jones drafted back-to-back. Ohio State just put 4 players and 11 picks across multiple positions. Ryan Day built something special in Columbus, and the NFL draft was the proof of concept. There are picks that require more conversation before we close out this breakdown. The Cowboys taking Caleb Downs at 11 is a fantastic pick. Downs is one of the most versatile and instinctive safeties in this class, and Dallas needed defensive playmakers badly after finishing with the worst defense in the NFL in 2025. The Ravens getting Oliva Vega-Sioane, interior offensive lineman out of Penn State. At 14 continues Baltimore's long tradition of building from the inside out. The Dolphins taking Caden Proctor from Alabama at 12 is the high-risk, high-reward pick of the first round. Proctor graded at 86, won by PFF in his final college season, and has the size and technique to develop into a franchise left tackle. But there have been questions about maintaining his ideal weight, and now he lands on a young roster with an inexperienced coaching staff. The Saints getting Jordan Tyson, wide receiver from Arizona State, at 8, is a pick analysts are calling one of the most talented players in the class, falling to a perfect landing spot. Tyson had injury concerns throughout his 4 college seasons. He missed time in every single year, but as the draft process went on and coaches got involved in the evaluation, his tape was undeniable. New Orleans grabbed him at the right price and surrounded him immediately with depth pieces on day 2, including tight end Oscar Delp and day 3 receivers Bryce Lance and Berrien Brown. The Saints class is not the flashiest, but Mickey Loomis built it the right way. Now let's talk about Pittsburgh itself for a second, because the city deserves its flowers. 805,000 people. That is the official attendance figure the NFL announced for the 2026 NFL Draft weekend in Pittsburgh. 805,000 human beings flooded into that city over 3 days. Pittsburgh Mayor Corey O'Connor said it best after the weekend wrapped. The real win was how many people left Pittsburgh and went home to wherever they are from to talk about the city. That is exactly right. This was not just a football event. This was a festival. Concerts, block parties, card collector events, the Pittsburgh Draft Day 5K on Saturday. Morning that drew runners from 34 states and 9 countries. The NFL Draft has become something that transcends the sport itself. It is hope. It is spectacle. It is the one event on the calendar where every single fan base in the league shows up with genuine optimism, Because on draft weekend, everybody's team has a chance. Even the Browns, even the Raiders, even the Jets. And Pittsburgh delivered on every single promise the city made when it won the right to host. The atmosphere looked electric. The fans were relentless. The city showed up. Big win for Pittsburgh, big win for the NFL, big win for football culture in America. Let's close with a real, honest assessment of where things stand as of April 28th, 2026, 2 days after the final picks were made. Draft grades in April mean almost nothing in the long run. We all know that. You can win the draft on paper and produce nothing. You can get mocked by analysts on Thursday night and produce 3 Pro Bowlers. That has happened before, and it will happen again. But what grades do tell you is whether a franchise has a plan, whether they executed that plan with discipline, and whether the players they brought in fit the system and the culture they are trying to build. By that measure, Cleveland and Philadelphia are in a class of their own this year. By that measure, Tampa Bay made the move that could define their defense for the next 5 years. By that measure, the Jets finally look like a front office that is drafting with a purpose rather than just surviving. And by that measure, Las Vegas is betting everything on a Cuban-American kid from Miami who was a 2-star recruit 5 years ago, who nobody wanted, who walked onto a Power 5 campus on a single scholarship offer, and who just heard his name called first in the NFL draft. A kid who grew up wanting to be Tom Brady. A kid who will now walk into Raiders headquarters every morning knowing that Tom Brady, the actual Tom Brady, now a minority owner of the franchise, is watching him, investing in him, and expecting greatness from him. If that is not a story worth watching, nothing in professional football is. The 2026 NFL Draft is over. The analysis has only just begun. Drop your winners and losers in the comments right now. I want to know if you think Cleveland really pulled off the best draft class in the league, whether you think Howie Roseman should be illegal, and most importantly, whether you think Fernando Mendoza has what it takes to actually turn the Raiders around. Every comment gets read. Hit subscribe if you are not already locked in. Because the 2026 NFL season is coming fast, the offseason moves are not done yet, and this channel is going to be here for every single thing that happens between now and September. Football never sleeps. Neither do we.